Greetings, it is I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, welcome. It's time to continue my discussion on Spelljammer. Of course, I was talking about all the various campaign settings introduced to AD&D and D&D in general over the years, and I was starting with these adventures in space. So with Spelljammer, we were talking about some of the races and monsters you could find in space, and I'm going to try to finish up with most of them that I want to talk about today. So let's start with the Aperusa. Now the Aperusa are effectively the gypsies of wild space. They love colorful silks and jewelry and act very much so like their ground-based cousins. They've kind of these slipshod, brightly painted spelljamming ships that they travel within. Now, they're normally not aggressive, but they have two groups that they can use if they need to get into combat. The Blades, which are effectively their warrior, and the Umbras, which are their spies and infiltrators. They're based around these clan groups that are led by males. Males are the tops of their society. They're also known as the greatest salvagers. There's a reason there aren't a lot of salvage in space, and they're it. The Aperusa are notorious pack rats, just collecting anything they can pick up. They're pretty much just normal humans, except they tend to have higher than average dexterity, constitution, and charisma, which stands them out. But other than that, they're pretty much human. Now, there are two creatures I want to mention because I thought they were very interesting because they are kind of rip-offs of stuff from Japanese movies. That's a great way of saying it. They're pretty rip-off, and even a little more modern ones. So I did want to mention these two very interesting creatures. First off is the Boiroid, which is pretty much the Guyver, if you've ever seen any of the Guyver movies. It effectively is a kind of living insect-like armor that goes over the top of things and bonds with their host. Now, they were created during the Unhuman War by the elves, but then they were abandoned because they were seen as, like, unnecessary and kind of a dirty little secret that they used during those wars. And they can spread themselves, so it's not like something that can't occur more of them, that they can have, like, children versions of them that bond with new creatures out there. Very, very Guyver. And the other one is Gammeroid, which is like Space Gamera. They're giant turtles which lay their eggs in lava in planets until they get bigger, burst out, causing a lot of destruction in the area, eventually leaving out into space, living for millennia. So they're effectively giant, ravenous space turtles that tend not to prey on Spelljammer ships because it's a lot of work to get the tasty little things inside, and Spelljamming ships themselves aren't very tasty. That's the only reason that you don't get more of them attacking a Spelljammer ship. Next up is Doir. Now the Doir are the short, stocky, flightless bird avian race that look a lot like penguins. They are shameless merchants that think of themselves as the main rivals of the arcane. Hard to say if they really are. They are a good merchant race, and they're all about business and such in their entire society. They're based around a president as a leader structure with board members underneath them. So it's very business acumented in the entire society of these short, flightless birds. Now the Grav are a short, stocky race that has the ability to manipulate gravity and are known to be expert miners digging up ores and various jewelries on asteroids and planets and such, wherever they travel to. They're always based around this entire idea of mining and collecting these materials. They are based around this order of mining, which is their hierarchy, that there's the top tier miners going on the way down. Basically, the expert miners are in charge and all the others work under them. Now let's talk about the Scro, because they're an important one to mention. The Scro are an incredibly militaristic and regimental race that exists out in wild space. They resemble orcs, but they have kind of features that show them different than them just by a little bit. They're known for maintaining this studded leather armor, which is like a signature of them, and their military organizations to a T, and they have insignias which mark which tribe they're from. They actually have a language that's very similar to Orcish, so it seems to be a dialect based off of that. They are fearsome warriors, and have a lot of that bloodthirsty, like, kill them all attitude that orcs have, but tempered with strategy and cunning, as if they've taken that bloodthirsty nature of orcs and channeled it into something a little more controlled and useful, making them very dangerous. Their homeworld, Ducargarus, no one knows its exact location. No, everyone knows it's this place from the description that it's not really beautiful, but not ugly or trashy either. It's just there and exists in like this effective nature. That's all about it. There are 24 tribes upon the planet, and each tribe has a almighty leader at the top of it. And above all of them is the ultimate high overlord ruling over the planet and all the Scroll. They are incredibly regimental and based around everything of the military. They don't believe in conquering wild space. What they believe is they should drive all the other groundling races, races that have groundlings to them, back to the planets and out of wild space. Of course, all the other races that are native to wild space can stay there. They would make fine slaves. So that is their entire attitude, and they almost have a religion to this entire idea of conquest in this way. The Scro are actually born from orcs. At the end of the Inhuman War, a powerful leader, Dracovin, the one that the homeworld is named after, led a large group of them. And he realized that a lot of their tactics and way of doing things were not getting the job done, and was one of the reasons that they lost out in the Unhuman War. So when he found the planet and settled it there, he activated this training regiment, teaching a new order, basically changing this group from chaotic to lawful. So he gave order to them, and upon his death, he said, "You're on the right path." So he has a floating tomb above the northern pole of the planet that sort of watches over the entire planet and keeps them in this ordered regimental line that they've sort of bred into now after all these generations. They've made themselves into a new, more powerful race based upon orcs that's just moving out into space now and becoming much more fearsome and dangerous. They are something that might cause another Unhuman War to get out there as a more threatening. Though the thing is, they believe in the rules of military engagement, so they're not against parleying or peace, things like that. That makes them much more reasonable to deal with, so it's hard to say what elves will really end up doing against them. If they will start another war, or if they'll keep it similar to what's going on with things like the Neogi and Mind Flayers, and Beholders themselves, that are dangers, but not as much of a danger, at least as how they believed it was before. Now, the Xixchil are mantoid creatures, mantoid humanoids that are master crafters and builders. The other thing is, though, they are expert surgeons, masters of medical craft. They can do any kind of surgery, grafting on parts, changing parts, rebuilding people, and they have special abilities that pertain to this. They can make anesthetics that are tailored to the creature that they are dealing with. They can also fabricate poisons within themselves. So they can both knock out someone and poison something using materials within their own body to craft them very effectively. They come from a planet that was filled with predators that made it that they had to have these defensive abilities and be very adaptable in order to survive, which is driven to the point that they are now. They are incredible surgeons and constructors, and surgeons are actually the most important thing about it. If you lose a limb or something like that, they're the best one that you can get to replace it. They also can do body modifications, but they don't have the same sense of beauty that most other races do. So when they modify you, you probably aren't going to end up very pretty, but you might have what you want in the body modifications that you're aiming for. So that's it for today. I introduced you to a few more races that you might encounter out in space, from spacefaring gypsies to a descendant of orcs that's very dangerous, to surgical mantoids, and introduced you to a few other minor creatures that are interesting out there, and a few strange creatures based on Japanese source material. Kind of blatantly, but not quite there. You know, they're very interesting things. The Boiroids and the Gammeroids. But anyway, in the next episode, I'm going to start diving into the Spacefarer's Handbook and introducing you more information that you're going to need to know to play out in Spelljammer. So if you have any questions, comments, anything you say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe to support the channel, the Empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon, link in the description below. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.